NorthcoastUnderground.com. The Underground starts with you.
Check out some exclusive music from Johnsonian Theory.
They tried to say Obama was anti-Americanism because he promoted ideas associated with socialism. But at least he heeds to the pleas and cries of the poor. It's time to challenge the current system and then shake it right down to the core. You may not agree with my politics, but please connect the top to your bottom lip. Joseph McCarthy was on a hunt for socialists just because they spoke about social ownership. You start talking about reformation and next thing you know you're in a police station. Libertarian socialization is seen as the greatest abomination. When you start talking about sharing the profits, next thing you know here come political prophets. They say all is well, but they need to stop it. I wish that they broadcast live from the projects. They're afraid if we regulate the cash flow, we'll end up with another Fidel Castro. They don't understand we're a land of pagans who will elect and act like Ronald Reagan just to keep up our public persona. If we keep this up, then we'll all be gone. It's better push up when you rush and say Das Bedonia. If we keep this up, then we'll all be gone.
Fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. If you want it, come and get some. Because we love wisdom. Because we love wisdom.
People in every part of the globe are perishing because their judgment is low. From children to teens to elderly folks, this epidemic is incredibly bold. Wisdom is needed to see through the fog. Without it, we'll stumble and cease to the long. You're jumping without something to break and fall if you choose to ignore wisdom's beckoning call. The only people who will lose the war are those who don't know who they're fighting for. You are the only one who can decide your fate. Don't waste your life when you can live inside of grace. If we turn to God and behold His shining face, we will gain traction to run in this human race.
Hey, what's going on? JC Johnson here for The Love of Wisdom, where philosophy meets the streets. And on today's episode, we're discussing the wisdom of socialism.
Fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. If you want it, come and get some. Because we love wisdom. Because we love wisdom. Fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. If you want it, come and get some. Because we love wisdom. Because we love wisdom.
All right, what's going on? JC Johnson here for The Love of Wisdom, where philosophy meets the streets. And on today's episode, we are discussing the wisdom of socialism. And as you heard from that clip right there, that is discussing everything that we're going to get into. And it was kind of talking about some of the differences between socialism and capitalism. Capitalism is something that we discussed last time. So that clip right there, that was something that was produced by Johnsonian Theory. And if you want to hear it again, you should be able to either hear it on the podcast version of this episode, or you can hear it on iTunes or anywhere. It's going to be available pretty soon for you to be able to download that. But yeah, that song, Socialism, it's talking about what we're discussing here, which is this whole issue of which one is better, right? Which one is right and which one is wrong? Is it about capitalism or is it socialism? And something that was said by Martin Luther King Jr., that I thought was interesting as he was talking about capitalism. He said, capitalism does not permit an even flow of economic resources. With this system, a small privileged few are rich beyond conscience, and almost all others are doomed to be poor at some level. That's why the system works. And since we know that the system will not change the rules, we're going to have to change the system. So that was from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. As he was speaking about this. He was speaking about capitalism from a negative standpoint, basically saying that capitalism works, but the only reason that it works is because you have the rich and you have the poor. There's not a whole lot of balance. And that's the issue that people have with capitalism. And that's why they would be more proponents of socialism instead. And we're going to take a look at, some of the differences between the two of those. But one thing that I think is important to remember when it comes to, this whole debate, it's not necessarily, that one is better than the other, or one is good and one is evil. But the thing is, human beings, the hearts of human beings, that's really the issue. It is, how are people using these systems? Because there are people who take advantage of others because of capitalism, and there are also those who take advantage of others because of socialism. And that's one of the things that we have to keep in mind. Either one can be used for good or for evil. There was an article that we read last time when we were talking about capitalism, and in this article, which is from gotquestions.org, and the article is called "What Does the Bible Say About Capitalism?" This article says here that basically, by contrast, socialism ignores the biblical definitions of human nature. As a result, they allow economic power to be centralized and concentrate power in the hands of a few greedy people. Those who complain of the influence major corporations have on our lives should consider the socialist alternative, where a few governmental bureaucrats control every aspect of our lives. So they're giving the balance there. They're not saying that socialism is the answer, because if you look at socialist places such as Cuba, as the song by Johnsonian Theory mentioned, it talks about how people are afraid that if we have a socialistic society, that it'll be like Cuba, where when they were under the reign of Fidel Castro, and they thought that having a socialistic society was beneficial. But the problem with that is that many people were taken advantage of, especially the poor, because really they had no way to come up. They had no way to become thousandaires, millionaires, or billionaires, because they were stuck. They could only make a certain amount. And the whole thing about socialism as compared to capitalism is that socialism has to do with sharing everything with society. Basically, it's not individuals who are able to make as much wealth as they want, but pretty much everything has to be shared with society as a whole. And sometimes that can be good, sometimes that can be bad, and we're gonna take a look at that. If you missed the discussion on capitalism, don't worry. This episode or that episode is going to be available as a podcast on Monday, right? So be on the lookout for that. We're going to have new episodes every week. Most likely, there's going to be episodes available every week, at least for this season, between Monday and Friday. So be on the lookout for that. You'll be able to hear that if you missed it. You can hear it on iTunes, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, Google Play Music, pretty much anywhere where you can hear podcasts. And also, you can connect with me on social media. You can find me on either Instagram or Twitter. The handle is at the handle for Instagram is at OnePlanMedia, and also for Twitter, it's the same thing. It used to be at LoveWise Podcast, but now you can connect with me about this show on Instagram or Twitter with the same handle at OnePlanMedia, and that's one spelled out ONE, Plan Media. So definitely connect with me on there. If you follow me, I do follow back, and we can continue the discussion that way. And if you have any suggestions about a show topic that you think would be really important, or just something that, even if you disagree with something that I said, definitely hit me up and we can talk about that. So we're going to continue with the conversation now, talking about socialism in comparison to capitalism. So what is socialism exactly? we're going to the Britannica for this, and I think that it does a really good job of breaking down both capitalism and socialism. So we used this on the last show about capitalism. So now we're talking about socialism, and it says here that socialism is a social and economic doctrine that calls for public rather than private ownership or control of property and natural resources. Again, socialism is a social and economic doctrine that calls for public rather than private ownership or control of property and natural resources. According to the socialist view, individuals do not live or work in isolation, but live in cooperation with one another. Okay, so what is this saying here? It's saying that there's not a millionaire on 32nd Street, a billionaire on 34th Street, and a poor person on 37th Street. What they're saying is it's level across the board. Nobody really owns anything as an individual, but rather everyone owns something together corporately. And the theory behind this is that by doing so, it provides a much more fair situation economically for everybody involved, because one person is not monopolizing everything. Just like people feared that Bill Gates was doing with Microsoft back in the mid-90s. They said, oh, he has a monopoly on computer software. You know, it's everywhere. This isn't fair. You know, they tried to shut him down, and they even said what he was doing was illegal, right? Because people were so concerned. Bill Gates actually, he said something pretty interesting when it comes to this whole idea of capitalism and people having a problem with it. Bill Gates said, capitalism has worked very well. Anyone who wants to move to North Korea is welcome. So he says that kind of tongue in cheek, but I get his point. He's basically saying, you know, you don't have to be in America. If you don't like the way that things are going here, you can always go somewhere else, right? But hopefully you won't have to do that. Hopefully we'll be able to find a balance. But more on that after this. You're listening to North Coast Underground, where the underground starts with you. All right, what's going on? JC Johnson here for the Love of Wisdom, where philosophy meets the streets, and we are back. Right now, we are discussing the wisdom of socialism. So in the last show, we talked about the wisdom of capitalism, and so now we're looking at the wisdom of socialism. We're really comparing the two and seeing which one is more beneficial, or if maybe both are beneficial. From what it's looking like, it looks like both have their advantages and their disadvantages. Okay, so one thing that we see here, we have some conflicting opinions. Martin Luther King Jr. says, capitalism does not permit an even flow of economic resources. He went on to say, and since we know that the system will not change the rules, we're going to have to change the system. You know, speaking about, changing the way that capitalism operates. Whereas you see someone like Bill Gates, he says, capitalism has worked very well. Anyone who wants to move to North Korea is welcome. Okay, so we have some differences of opinion when it comes to this whole thing. And we were looking at an article before we went to the break, and it was actually from the Britannica, and it broke down what socialism is. And one other thing that it says here is that socialists complain that capitalism necessarily leads to unfair and exploitative concentrations of wealth and power in the hands of the relative few who emerge victorious from free market competition people who then use their wealth and power to reinforce their dominance in society. So basically what they're saying is capitalism is not good because the people who become wealthy, they're not using their wealth for good, but they're using it to dominate other people. And we've seen, plenty of times, I'm sure you have entertainers who have maybe allegations against them of sexual misconduct, but because they have so much money, it seems that they're able to get out of situations that people without money aren't able to get out of. So we're seeing this recently, even with R. Kelly, and people have their differences of opinion about him, but it is kind of odd just the way that things have been going with him for the past 20 plus years. Going back to his dealings with Aaliyah, if you're familiar with that, over 20 years ago, or even the underage girls that he was caught with in a home video back in 99, all that kind of stuff that's been going on with him. And people say, how come he was never sent to prison for all of this? How did he get away with it? So if he's innocent, then you can say that his money protected him from being falsely accused and falsely imprisoned. However, if he's guilty, then one could also argue that his money is the thing that is keeping him out of prison, but he shouldn't be kept out of prison, right? And so anyone who is going about things in an evil way, or taking advantage of people, something should be done about that. But unfortunately, that's not always the case. Sometimes the innocent are punished, and sometimes the guilty go free. But just because they get away with it for now, we have to remember it doesn't mean they're going to get away with it forever, because things always catch up to people. At some point in time, their actions are going to catch up with them, and they're not going to be able to escape the consequences. So this article then says here, because such people are rich, they may choose where and how to live, and their choices in turn limit the options of the poor. So that's something else to consider too. If all the rich people move to one part of town and leave all the poor people in another part of town, then guess who's going to have the better school district? Guess who's going to have the better grocery stores? Guess who's going to have, the better after-school resources for children? The rich, because they're the ones who are investing in all of that. So people who are proponents of socialism would say, well, really, it's better for all of this to be evenly distributed so that all of our school districts can be the same, and all of our resources that we're able to take advantage of are all the same. A person who lives 20 minutes this way shouldn't lack the resources that somebody has who's just 20 minutes that way. TheBalance.com has a breakdown of some of the differences between capitalism, socialism, communism, and fascism. And I think that this is a pretty good comparison. It's a chart here. If you want to see the full chart, you should be able to see that on thebalance.com. Just look up capitalism, its characteristics with pros and cons. All right, so here's what it says. It breaks it down by 5 different attributes. It breaks down each of these: capitalism, socialism, communism, and fascism. They're all broken down by 5 different attributes. The first one is factors of production are owned by who, right? So it answers that question. The second attribute, the factors of production are valued for what? And then it goes on to answer that for each of them. And then allocation is decided by what? Then from each according to his what? and then to each according to his what? So if that's confusing at all, I know I'm not really saying much with that, but I'm gonna explain what all of that means. So the first attribute, factors of production are owned by. What it's saying is the factors of production are owned by individuals when it comes to capitalism. But with socialism, communism, and fascism, factors of production are owned by everyone. So that's the difference. With capitalism, factors of production are owned by individuals. But with socialism, communism, and fascism, factors of production are owned by everyone. The second attribute, when it comes to capitalism, factors of production are valued for profit. But when it comes to socialism and communism, factors of production are valued for usefulness to people. But the difference in this case, between socialism, communism, and fascism is that fascism is different in that factors of production are valued for nation building. Okay, so that's the difference when it comes to fascism. Whereas with socialism and communism, factors of production are valued for usefulness to people, and with capitalism, factors of production are valued for profit. Now, when it comes to capitalism, allocation is decided by supply and demand. Whereas with socialism, communism, and fascism, allocation is decided by a central plan. It's a central plan. It's something that's predetermined. It doesn't matter how much is being demanded or how much is being supplied. They have a central plan that decides how this allocation takes place, meaning the allocation of wealth. And the second to last attribute here, it says, when it comes to capitalism, from each according to his market decides. That's how it works. Versus socialism and communism, from each according to his ability. And then when it comes to fascism, from each according to his value to the nation. So it depends on how much value the person has. Whereas with socialism and communism, it's about their ability, and when it comes to capitalism, it's about what the market decides. But more on that after this. You are listening to North Coast Underground, where the underground starts with you, and I'm JC Johnson for the Love of Wisdom, where philosophy meets the streets.
Fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. If you want it, come and get some. Because we love wisdom. Because we love wisdom. 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 Wisdom.